Today on Her Story, I am thrilled to speak with Shukla Bose, founder and CEO of Parikrama Humanity Foundation. For 20 years, Parikrama has been delivering high quality, holistic education to children from the poorest communities, transforming over 1,500 young lives. Before founding Parikrama, Shukla had a successful corporate career but chose to follow her heart into the social sector. She also helped shape education policies nationally and has been honored with multiple awards for her work. She's a change maker, a leader, and someone deeply committed to giving every child the opportunity to thrive. Thank you so much, Shukla, for being part of this conversation. It's wonderful to have you share your journey with us on Her Story.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I don't know how you found me, but I'm honored that you did.
Thank you so much. Can you tell us a bit about Parikrama, please?
Okay. Puma is an NGO that I started about 22 years ago. Gosh, 22 years seems a long time, but it actually is quite short as compared to what needs to be done. Anyway, I started at 22 years ago after leaving a fairly high profile corporate life because I felt that there was a tremendous amount of disconnect between a certain section of people and the marginalized. And I thought that this was so, and this social injustice kind of really bothered me. I felt I do believe that everybody needs to have equal opportunity to grow, to unleash their potential, because I feel there's so much of potential that human beings have and children have, irrespective of where they come. And I felt only education can help them, unleash that potential. So I started Parikrama with very little idea about academics, but a lot of experience of working in the grassroots, which I had done as a volunteer many years ago. And I started Parikrama from my kitchen table, actually, with my personal funds, all my life savings. And that's because I felt that I needed to take the risks before I could ask anyone to support me, because I really believe it's important to burn the bridges behind you and not have a plan B, because you've got to make plan A succeed. So I run now 4 schools, a junior college, and we have adopted about 5 government schools are in the process of adopting 2 more. So we have 2,000 children in our schools, and I think we're influencing about more than 75,000 children, all coming from the slums and the marginalized sections of society.
You mentioned your focus was to unleash the potential of individuals, allowing them equal opportunity, and more is education. So, what are you doing different to make the impact or the amplify the?
Okay, we're doing quite a few things different. And when I started 22 years ago, everybody thought it was impossible. For instance, all our schools are English medium schools, high quality English medium schools. We we have a model which is a comprehensive model where we call it the 360-degree model, because we believe that it is impossible for children to do well in academics and studies if they are hungry. So, long before in some places the midday meal had started, we began by providing breakfast, lunch, and an evening glass of protein mix and snacks and send the children home. We try and give about more than 88% of the calories required in the school itself. So, nutrition is a very important element of the 360 degree. We also take care of health from vaccination, immunization, as well as hospitalization. Because we believe that just because these children are coming from slums and poor homes where the parents cannot afford health care, we cannot allow poor health to impact their growth, you know. So we take care of total health care of our children. Then we also believe that it is important for us to work with their families. We in India, particularly, we are irrespective of what kind of economic background we come from, we are very closely connected with family. And therefore, it is important to take the family along in the journey of growth, of progress, and not make the family become a stumbling block, okay, because they are left behind. So we do a lot of counseling, de-addiction program for our fathers, counseling program for the families, so there's less violence, less domestic violence, less alcoholism. We also do skill development of parents so that they can earn a little more. So our parents come from, they are mostly daily wage labor that have come from unorganized sectors of the economy. We try and train them and get them a permanent jobs in organizations or wherever, whichever domain they are in. So stability in the household actually helps the children do well in school. So the 360 degree is a very high quality education, English medium, which is which gives them the opportunity to be equal to any. It is the business language. And I tell everyone that our children are better in Kannada or Tamil than child going to a government school, but they are very comfortable in English. So they do very well. So high quality English education, total health care, and 3 meals a day in school itself, and working closely with the family. This is a comprehensive, we call it the circle of life model. The other unique feature of Parikrama is it's not just a school, it's a movement actually, because we have children coming at age 5 and we take care of them till they are age 25. That means they come at the age of 5 in upper KG, and then they finish school at grade 10. Then we have our own junior college, so they do 11 and 12 in junior college, and then we sponsor their education in universities. That is making children possible from the slums, first generation learners whose parents have never been or have been to school and dropped out of school at early stage. They feel confident to go for higher studies. And we also prepare them to get good jobs. So I have students who are software engineers in Cisco, in Infosys, in Accenture. And it's unbelievable looking at where they come from. And I have lawyers, I have well known film stars. They're all from Kraman, and the environment we give them.
From my little experience working with different founders, addressing just one aspect doesn't help because there are many other variables that impact their life. Does this evolve as part of the program once you face different challenges? Or was this something that you came with as a model that you think will work?
This is the Parikrama model. I mean, when I began Parikrama, I was very clear that our journey had to be impactful. It couldn't be segmented and fragmented. So we are very clear that our children, 100% of our children are employable. And that has been what is happening in the last 6, 7 years, because now they've graduated and they're all getting jobs. So 100% of our children. That is the only way you can make any difference in the community that they are coming from. It is not just teaching them how to read or write, but actually taking that knowledge, that experience, and finding a different path of life, improve their quality of life. So all my children now, they're all most of them have moved out from the slums with their families, and some of them are in the process of moving out the slums. But that's the ultimate goal. Okay, so we believe that, and I began with that idea that anyone who goes through parikrama needs to lead a better quality life, get a good job, be equal to any one of us, and think differently. And I think that's something, Santosh, I need to mention. I think one of the things that I started concentrating on right from the very beginning, that we must make these children who come from really deprived homes, some of our children come from shelters where both the parents are life-term prisoners. Many of our children come from orphanages. So what I believe that normally these children and their families have what I call the poverty of the mind. They think they can't do. So right from the very beginning, we try and eradicate that poverty of mind and make them feel. So I have kids who are studying in the US, okay? So I know that, and they're doing extremely well. I have a child who's now returning. She went for an undergrad and she's now returning. She was leader of the school, an all white school. She never felt in any way inferior. And I think that is the point, is to make our children feel they are equal. They are no way inferior. Doesn't matter where they come from, who they are today, and what their dreams are for tomorrow are most important. I have children who get continuously selected for the Global Youth Leadership Summit. I have few kids going in the month of July to San Diego, and they come back, of course, absolutely wide eyed. That exposure absolutely builds them and gives them different goalposts in life, but they don't come back feeling in any way inferior. They do very well and they come back re energized and full of confidence because they know what they have is very valuable.
Allowing them the space to believe that they can do much more, and that
Yeah.
there are so many opportunities out there for them is it, because their potential, everybody has infinite potential. So I believe that they need.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. You did mention about initial days of volunteering before you started your corporate life. Could you
Yeah.
throw some light that and how that shaped you as an individual?
Okay. So when I was in school, college, university, I had the opportunity to volunteer with Mother Teresa while she was alive. I worked in Calcutta in Shishu Bhavan and Nirmal Hriday for 7 years. I volunteered. So twice a week, I would go and spend time with Mother Teresa. I was very fortunate that at that time, she hadn't got the Nobel Prize and she spent a lot of time in Kolkata. After that, she began to travel a great deal. I learned a lot from her. I also learned that, if you really want to do something, you have that intent and what you would call these 3 Ps, your passion, perseverance, and patience, you can do a lot. Mother Teresa would always say that, you don't, or each one of us they do not have to do great things. But if we can do small things with great love, that itself will have a lot of impact. These are some of the things that I learned from her. So I count all my blessings. even however small, I teach my teachers not to get boggled down with too much of disappointment, but to celebrate each success, small wins, because what we're doing is making this whole generation think differently, live differently, and create differently. That is not easy. And it has to be done with a great amount of patience. So I learned that from her. I learned many things. I worked in the corporate life. I was a CEO of a very large multinational company for 11 years. I was looking after India, Southeast Asia, Middle East, and China. And I had a lot of, people of all different regions reporting to me. It was a big high, but I felt my work with Mother Teresa kept me grounded. And so it's very important. And I say this to my children practically every day, that it's very important to think of success without any ego, to think of failure without any fear. And I always tell them, you can be dignified in poverty, but be very practical about wealth. And I think some of these things I learned from Mother Teresa.
So, what was interaction with her like? Do you recall any one particular
Oh, yeah,
instance?
I have lots of stories about with her. I think what's in my mind, what is etched, so much has been written about her, but what is etched in my mind, because I was also in my formative stage at that time, I was young. What is etched in my mind is her simplicity, her humility, amazing humility. I remember sometimes she would wonder why people come from all over the world to see her, you know, and work with her. I mean, it's amazing. And she didn't know who she was. I mean, the persona that she was. We think of we think leaders have to be great personality, great in oratory. And she was just the opposite. She was a short, tiny figure. She didn't have that kind of physical presence. She was hardly an orator. But her genuineness, her simplicity, and her humility came through. And it was like, I felt, I would, I was in a hostel, I was in college, I was in a hostel. And instead of going out to seeing movies and all on holidays with my friends, I would go to her because there was something, that charisma that she had was very unconventional charisma. And it's just genuineness. I have tried very hard to emulate her all these years, very hard. There's no way I can match. But I do try. I'm very pragmatic about. I don't get too carried away with either success or failure. And I think she has helped me to find that little balance in life.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing this, Shobna.
I
So,
have
you
to
did
tell
mention,
you one story, okay?
please.
I don't know whether you can see it, but I have a mole, a very large mole on the right hand side of my nose, okay? So I was in college at that time, and some teenager must have told me that, I would look better without that mole. And I got carried away, and I decided to, just nick it off and go to a doctor and get it. Unfortunately and fortunately, the surgeon gave me time on the day that I had committed to Mother Teresa, just to, it was a very local anesthesia, a surgery, nothing big. But I went to Mother Teresa and said, Mother, I can't come on this particular day. And she said, why? So I said, because, I have to go to the doctor. And she got worried because she knew that I was staying away from my parents. And she said, are you all right? So I said, yeah, I am. But I just want to take this mole away. And then she said, why? That's a gift from God. And why should you try and tamper with it? So I said, I think I'll look better. So she said, rubbish, you know. But you know what she said? She said, how much are you going to spend, give the doctor for that surgery? And I can't remember how much, but it was a paltry amount. And she said, write a check for the missionaries of charity for that amount. And Santosh, I've never been able to even think of cutting this small. I have been asked many times, because is it growing? You know how people get scared. But I believe that this is a gift from God and a
And
gift from Mother Teresa.
that's that the perception of beauty, appreciating imperfections that comes with time. I think when we're younger, we do
Yeah,
get carried away trying to be perfect.
true. But I think it's also, there are many things that we give a lot of importance to, but they're actually trivia. I think that learning,
Oh,
that you have to be able to disseminate trivia from the real stuff. So this was trivia.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, what was your major subject in college?
Oh, English. I studied English literature. I did my master's in comparative literature. I did my MBA in marketing, specialized in marketing. And then very recently, I did my PhD in public policy and governance.
How did comparative literature shape the way you think today?
Oh, what a lovely question. I've never been asked this question before, and I think it's so important. Comparative literature, did my master's in comparative literature from Jadavpur University. Comparative literature, I had done my bachelor's in English literature. Then instead of continuing with English literature, I decided to study comparative literature. It opened up the landscape of literature. Okay, so we had to compare either the genre of literature, romantic poetry across Europe, across United States was pretty nascent in literature at that time. And do comparisons, understand the anthropology, understand what made people think and write. And because, literature is actually a reflection of society. So, what made some of the well known artists, authors like Dostoevsky, Racine from France, Moliere, in theater. So Beckett, we studied all that, and we also went behind what prompted them to write the way they did. What was happening in society that really, I really believe in thinking big. I believe in, and that's what I try and do with my children, is make them look beyond themselves, look beyond, and things in a larger spectrum. I think that learning began with my masters of comparative literature, to compare what made certain authors in certain age think the way they did, what made them write the way they did, and what was the ethos of their, you know, writing. I think that was really helpful. Nobody's ever asked me that question, but I think the reason why the reason why I always think of the big picture, my colleagues and all my team members from Parikrama, they know that I will always come in and talk of the big picture. And I think the big thinking about the big picture come from my learning of comparative literature.
You transition from a corporate world, which has its own set of challenges. And then you moved into starting a not for profit from scratch. And we know that starting a not for profit and then running it consistently and successfully has its own share of challenges. So, how has it been? And how did you navigate through these challenges?
Okay, so I've often been asked is why did I get into the corporate world? Why did not I mean I had the opportunity to be working with Mother Teresa? Why did I not continue to do that? The answer is very simple. Social pressure, I think, parental pressure. I was a fairly good student. I did well in all my studies. And because I'd done my business management to a certain extent, it was expected of me to get into the business world. I was too young then and too inexperienced to put my foot down and say, no, this is not what I want to do. And also, I was not very clear about what I wanted to do. So I got into the business world. And because I think my hallmark is always been hard work. I'm not a bright person, not very brilliant or very intelligent, but I think I make up for it with real perseverance and hard work. And that has helped me along the way. And I did very well right through my career because whatever I did very passionately. It was not just a job, never just a job. It was always, what am I doing this for? That kind of thing, the purpose. And today's we call it ikigai, right? So I was very clear about that. And therefore I did very well. And uh, considering I come from a very fairly modest background, I mean, I didn't have a silver spoon when I was born. And so I really had to work the hard way. I enjoyed it actually because I looked at things a lot more intensely, studied more. I've been a good researcher right through. I just love inquiring, wanting to know more of things. And so I did well. I rose up the ranks fairly fast. And as I said, left the corporate world when I was a CEO. I was one of those very few professional Indian women CEOs in the country at the time. There were only 3 or 4 of us in CII and FICCI, representing our industry. So when I say 3 of us, three women representing each respective industry. So, but I knew deep down that there was much more to life. I knew, and I think that too was my experience with Mother Teresa because I know what the ground reality is. What I would spend for a pair of shoes, to buy a pair of shoes, I mean, branded shoes, could take care of a family of 5 or 7, 8 months. Look at the disconnect, look at the disparity, rather than, of course, I was grateful that I had that experience, but I was unhappy that others did not. And I felt I needed to do something. I felt, there are so many of us talk about what life should be and what the government should do for the poor. Many of us, unfortunately, tragically, do not even know how the poor live. Many of us. I mean, otherwise, we wouldn't be in a state where 1% of the world's population holding on to major share of the world's wealth, the disparity is enormous. I see it even today. I felt that I didn't want to be only talking about it over coffee and, intellectual discussion on what should be done. I felt I needed to do something myself about it. So I quit everything. I decided, well, I've been asked, what triggered you? There was no trigger. I mean, no event happened in my life that propelled me to give up everything and start parikrama. Nothing like that. But I think this continuous discontent with the way things were, and I felt I needed to do something about it, made me quit and start parikrama. And I think I gave up everything. I sold off my, you know, second holiday homes and my car and all that kind of stuff. And I was very grateful, but I wasn't surprised, but grateful that my family stood by me and they said, you should do whatever your calling. What is does your heart say? And they had to do a lot of adjustments, lot of sacrifices, because obviously we were moving on out from the affluent category to the just managing life kind of category. And there's never been a looking back. I think it was the best decision I made in my life.
We speak about burnout, where founders, because they have to manage the organization, raise funds, manage human resources. How did you overcome that in your organization? Did you have a point and how did you overcome that?
Yeah, burnout seems to be kind of a very fashionable term. But I mean, as a mother, can you burn out? Yeah. So, I mean, I look at all my kids as my own. It's my responsibility. I have to see them grow. I have to see them lead a better life. I see, today is the 12th and yesterday was Mother's Day. And I can't tell you how many messages, more than 100 messages I got from my children wishing me for Mother's Day and saying how much I have kind of impacted their lives. That's so fulfilling. I mean, I have 1,700 children that have graduated from Parikrama and well placed in life, doing brilliantly, not only in India but outside the country. But they're in touch with me. And not just me, even their teachers. But I feel very grateful that they remember me and they are in touch with me. I've just helped the Parikrama Alumni Association to get started. So, I want, so it's an ongoing process, it's progress. In fact, I have to tell you, Santosh, that I have more energy than many of my peers. I get up every day with great amount of guts. So because I have to do this, I look forward to every day because every day is so rewarding. Every day something new is. I keep telling, and I'll have to tell you, it's not all good news, right? There are lots of frustrating moments, disappointing moments, but there are times when I really go down. But there are others that pick me up because there's such happy stories around. So when you are the creator of happy stories and you are the protagonist of happy stories, how can you burn out? There's no question of burning out. I mean,
So
I do
beautiful.
know that I have come across a lot of founders, thankfully not many, but a few, who have said, I think it's now time to do something else. For me, what else can I do? This is my life.
You keep mentioning my children, my children. That sounds so wonderful. And you spoke about Mother's Day. So, what would your children, if they were to say a few words or describing you, what do you think that?
I just received a beautiful, now where is it? Yeah, beautiful postcard, okay? Written, and this is so sweet because nowadays nobody writes in a postcard, right?
Wow.
So, this dear Shukla Akka, they all call me Akka, okay? I am deeply thankful to you for giving me this beautiful opportunity to explore, learn, and grow through this experience. It's a life-changing experience, and I'm truly in awe of how it has allowed me to embrace the beauty of exploration and self-discovery. This is from one of my alums. He says, "Thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for inspiring me and opening up such transformative experiences with immense, for being a guiding light in my journey at Parikrama. I am forever grateful for the experiences, lessons, opportunities that Parikrama has given me. It has shaped me in ways I will always cherish, and I carry its values with me wherever I go. Look at the English, first in the family to go to school. And I think it's so touching that this young boy has written in a postcard because he knows that I like, you know, crazy things like this.
So
He
it's
could have sent me an
just
email, right?
so natural and beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
In
So I
this,
get
yeah.
this very often. I get this very often. I have to say, my kids are very good at painting. Okay. I have many kids that are doing extremely well in Shrishti Academy for Design. Can you imagine getting into Shrishti Academy with scholarships, as well as we managed to find sponsors to pay for their fees? And I think when they start painting or drawing, they paint me. I'll tell you behind, I can't show you. There are lots of, and I frame them up and I keep them, and my family laughs at it, you know. But I do because it's such beautiful. uh, It's such a beautiful thought. In some, they make me look prettier than I am, and some they make me look grotesque. But even so, I think all these paintings are beautiful.
This beautiful expression of love towards you. That's
Yeah.
how it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so in this day of AI, where people just put prompts and get responses, this is this needs to be cherished.
Yes,
Some
absolutely.
people take time to express
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah.
So speaking of AI, does it help your program? How is technology and Parikrama's mission working together?
It is a fact of life today. And we have to leverage it. It's great value in academics. It helps you get things done faster, precisely. For instance, lesson plans and ideas, and we use it. And we began doing that from COVID days, when we were compelled to, we were one of the first few schools in the country that started online classes. I had to beg, borrow from my friends and donors to give Android phones to my children. While, there was this lockdown, we collected 1,800 phones and distributed to all our kids. And we started classes. That was the time when we actually had to train all our teachers how to take online classes, how to browse, how to, get content. And so, and after the lockdown was taken out and, schools opened, we did not give up online classes. So we have used technology to actually take our learning, our children's learning to the next level. But at the same breath, we take great care not to be too dependent, because I feel when you start getting too dependent on AI, it might take away your creative zeal. So I tell my teachers, I want you to think. Don't just go do chat GPT. Think. How can you make your lesson more interesting? Think about yourself. AI will not be able to do it. What interested you? So it's very important to keep that balance. I think it's very important. There's no way you can shun it. I know that there are some very high end schools that, don't allow AI at all. I mean, these are all schools in America that don't allow too much of AI or technology because they want their children to, go through the absolute grassroots understanding fundamentals of learning, and I agree with that to a point. But in our case, I don't want the lack of technology or the lack of knowledge of how to leverage technology to be a hindrance for our children. because they will be getting into a world which will be in AI dominated. They have to be at par. So while I would encourage them to be creative, to think on their own, I also don't want them to be alien in that AI world. So we have to strike a balance here, and we're trying to do our best.
One final question about where I want your inputs on any new change maker, any young women entrepreneur or a social change maker who wants to come and make an impact in the education space, trying to, bring in the equality or bridge inequality. What could your suggestions or inputs to them be?
Okay. We have had quite a few interns, both from American and European universities, as well as Indian universities, who've come and interned with us. And I'm very happy that they have gone back and started on their own or have started working in an NGO. A few of them have become entrepreneurs. Now, I feel proud that we seem to have impacted them. Okay. And my advice to anybody who comes and wants to learn, we throw open our doors, because I think the more people we have who want to bridge the gap, the world would be a better place. Okay. So not just India, but the world. So I tell most entrepreneurs, look, you have to understand the poor. You got to understand them very well. Feel, don't go about it clinically. I give them a class called The Anatomy of the Poor. And that's what I did my doctorate on in public policies, to understand poverty. And if you really understand poverty, you are looking at what is genuinely needed in the communities that you want to work with, rather than build a product and try and sell it for them. You got to live. And I think that experience with that I had with Mother Teresa, working with children, abandoned children, working with abandoned people, dying destitutes in Nirmal Hriday, made me understand what is required. And one important thing, Santosh, that is required is nurturing. It is what is required is really make the constituency that we are working with, the poor, make them feel they're valuable, make them, because this poverty of the mind, this genuine feeling of worthlessness, we have to take that away, make them feel important, valuable, make them understand that we care, genuinely care, not because I think I know and therefore I'm here to help you. I actually had to unlearn many things when I began. And I unlearned because I wanted to begin from scratch. And I tell all entrepreneurs that, you have to really live that life now. Everybody doesn't have to be a Shantaram, but live that life and try and understand by listening to people. So I think biggest malady of today's world is that we have stopped listening. When you start listening, then you know what you need to do.
Your words are so powerful and your work is super impactful. Thank you so much, Shukla, for everything that you do. And thank you for taking some time out to share your journey with me. I'm so happy you agreed to be part of this.
Thank you so much for inviting me and asking me thought provoking questions, which made me think. So Thank you very much, Santosh.
No bridge too far, no mountain too high. On Paikraman you must try, try, try. No bridge too far, no mountain too high. On Paikraman you must try, try, try. No bridge too far, no mountain too high. On Paikraman you must try, try, try. No bridge too far, no mountain too high. On Paikraman you must try, try, try. Honesty, integrity shall flow in our vein. Care and compassion, humanity shall reign. To walk with our heads held high. On wings of love we shall fly, fly, fly. No bridge too far, no mountain too high. On Paikraman you must try, try.